Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, let's start. Al-Fatiha. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا من فضلك علما وعملا وقربا يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم زدنا ولا تنقصنا وأكرمنا ولا تهنا وأعطنا ولا تحرمنا وآثرنا ولا تؤثر علينا وأرضنا وارض عنا يا أرحم الراحمين. Okay, Bismillah. So, we've been looking at the story of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, and yesterday we got to the point where after much debate and discussion, Sayyidina Musa was told, if you have them something clear to prove the truth of your statement, bring it, right? So he was told to produce these miracles, which he did, right? So what happens next? Allah. um, okay, you just have to bear with me. I apologize. Um, what's happened is it's uploaded the wrong set of slides. Let me just get the right one. Ya Rab. Allah, Allah. Ya Rabbi. Okay, Bismillah. You should be. So, so what does Fir'aun do? So you have to see the situation that sometimes people in power, they're in power because of the structure, the structure of power in that place. And Fir'aun, yes, he had deluded people into thinking that he's a god and that he could control things, and they did worship him. And this was something of the Egyptians. They did tend to worship their rulers. So what keeps Fir'aun in power is this belief that people have and the power structure. So the people underneath him, like we talked about Qarun and Haman, and there were others. These people beneath him kept kept the power structure in order. And if these people had left, if these people had decided to become Muslims, Fir'aun's power would not have it wouldn't have remained absolute, right? So therefore, what he does is he immediately tries to ensure that this structure isn't affected. So let's have a look. What does he say? قال للملأ حوله إن هذا لساحر عليم يريد أن يخرجكم من أرضكم بسحره فماذا تأمرون. Pharaoh said to the chiefs around him, he is indeed a skilled magician who seeks to drive you from your land by his magic. So what do you propose? What do you command? It's as though he's put it in their hands. It's your command. It's your decision, right? And clearly, Fir'aun's own stance is clear, right? He considers Sayyidina Musa. He's saying he's a magician. What he's doing, what he's saying, isn't right, isn't appropriate. And look how he's manipulated them. So he said he's a really skilled magician, and it's like he's, obviously he's known Sayyidina Musa, since childhood. Okay, there's been this 10-year gap, but he's known Sayyidina Musa, so he's using that, all of these factors, using this, and his position in society as though, to influence them. He said, "Inna hadha la sahirun alim." This person right in front of you is a really knowledgeable magician, meaning he's done this because, due to his great, you know deep knowledge of magic, right? So don't try to make sense of it, because you won't be able to make sense. It's magic, and magic, as you know, in previous cultures, it was seen as something beyond. Those who could do it knew things which other people didn't know. It was seen as beyond logic and reason, right? I mean, if you took a piece of technology from our time and you showed it to someone from a few hundred years ago, they think it's magic because they can't understand how it works. So this is how it is. So what does he do now? This is an important point here. So he's manipulating them. And how does he do it? Yuridu an yukhrijakum min ardikum. He's saying he wants to take you out, drive you from your land, right? Bisihrihi, using his magic, right? Why, with these miracles that Sayyidina Musa has, he's calling them magic. And Fir'aun saying to them that he wants to drive you from your land. So, firstly, who wants to get driven from their home? No one, right? Secondly, it's not just their home. These people are in a structure. They're in excuse the pun is intended, but they're in a pyramid of power, right? With Fir'aun at the top, and these people slightly further down. So if they were to believe in Musa, or if Bani Israel left with Sayyidina Musa, or if Fir'aun and all these other people accepted Islam, they would no longer have the power that they control at this point. Now, this is a huge thing. People will, when it comes to power, or when it comes to status, or when it comes to things people hold dear and important, such as race, right? Racial identity, as we found with Bani Israel. Um, Later, when the Prophet Muhammad came, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when it comes to these things, people will sacrifice anything and everything, their lives, their wealth, even their children, even their akhirah, right? What did Huyay ibn Akhtab say? The father of the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Safiya bint Huyay, that her uncle asked him that, is he a prophet? He said yes, and he said, what we're going to do, we're going to fight him as long as there's breath in our bodies. That's his response, right? Why? Because he was not a Jew. He is not from Bani Israel. Rather, he's from the Bani Ismail, right? He's from the Arabs. So here, these people's power is being threatened, and Fir'aun is playing on these fears because he himself has the same fear, right? So he's playing on these fears that he wants to take you out of your land, and even if he takes the slaves out, it will affect the power structure. They won't enjoy the same level of comfort as they do, with slaves, right? You know, so it says, "Famada ta'murun." He's put it in their hands. What do you say? What do you suggest? Right? Clearly, these people are rattled, right? And what they're going to do? قالوا أرجه وأخاه. They replied, let him and his brother wait, delay the final response to his challenge of, of saying that there's one God and he's the proof, right? وابعث في المدائن حاشرين, and send mobilizers, gatherers, right, in all of the main cities, right? So Medina, like the largest cities, Mada in plural. So in the largest cities, send people that will gather all who يأتوك بكل سحار عليم, right? And they'll bring you every skilled magician. Now it's interesting that the Quran uses in this here, he uses the word sahar, which is in the pattern fa'al, someone that does something again and again and again and again. So he's constantly engaged with it, so he's going to have a high degree of skill with it. And in another ayah, sahirin alim. And on face value, it seems like there's no emphasis in the previous one. Sahir, just normal magician. But fa'il is also one of the sighas of the sifatul mushabbaha, which here it would give the meaning of someone that does this over a long period of time, permanence, you could say, right? So what they want is every magician who's practiced magic for a long time, constantly, right? So he's got the skill of repetition and constant engagement, and he's got the skill of time. He's passed, a lot of time has passed on with him doing this. So he said, so they said, arjehhu, right? The word is arjehhu, but it becomes arjeh because of the qira'ah. So arjeh wa akhahu, delay the response to him and his brother. So delay them. Um, we won't give our final response, right? And so these people, that their fears have been, you know, moved, and their fears are now, eating at them. That what if we lose our power? What if we lose our status? What if we lose this and that? And it's for the believer, someone who recognizes the truth of the message of a prophet, he sees that what's you see something, you see things in perspective, right? 60 to 80 years on this planet, right, for an adult, roughly, or eternity. What is more important, right? Obviously that which lasts longer, right? So the believer says, you know what, we shall believe, and even if it's at the expense of all of these things. But the kafir, what does he do? He prefers these things, right? And he will reject the truth, he'll reject messages from prophets, he will reject miracles, everything, just to hold on to this. Why do you think Quraysh didn't want to why do you think they didn't want to relinquish power? Firstly, they were making money off the idols, and secondly, there was a rivalry between Bani Abdiddar and Bani Hashim. So because of these things, they chose hell forever over, because of these things, right? So that's what they said. So what happens next? So we see um, what Surah Al-A'raf tells us. فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ sorry, Surah Yunus. فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ عِنْدِنَا قالوا إن هذا لسحر مبين. When the truth came to us, came to them from us, what is the truth here? Is the arguments of Sayyidina Musa and the miracles, right? They said this is certainly clear magic, pure magic. Anyone can see it's magic. So what they're doing, they're discrediting what Sayyidina Musa has produced. It's trying to discredit it, and it's clear, they have an issue, right? And they have an issue, which is what they don't want to lose their worldly power. So what do? This firstly, there's the standard character assassination of Sayyidina Musa, saying he's a magician, and then there's the subversion of his message by subverting his miracles, saying, look, it's not a miracle, it's actually magic. Anyone skilled enough in magic can do it. And guess what? We'll produce all the magicians. Now, so the ulama mentioned that every prophet was given a miracle that was suited to his time. So, um, in the time of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were experts at producing deep meanings from their language, the Arabs. So the Quran was given. In the time of Sayyidina Isa, some of the ulama have said that medicine was prevalent in his time. Others have actually said no, it was materialism, right? That people really materially focused, and this is makes more sense, and it goes with his message as well, because he was directing people to the akhirah, to Allah, right? Even if you look in the biblical sources, you talk about the kingdom of heaven, or he's talking about, don't be too focused on the law, right? If someone asks you to carry something for 1 mile, go the extra mile. Go. You have it in your mind. I'll walk a second mile as well. It's like that. So then his miracles went beyond what people were physically capable of at that time. The material limits were surpassed by those miracles, such as what? Such as healing those that were born blind, giving them eyesight, right? Birds being made out of clay, him blowing into them, and them, you know, coming to life. So that was the case with that. So he said, قال Musa. So Musa said, أتقولون للحق لما جاءكم. And this is where you stop here, because this is one of the usages of the Arabic language, which is very succinct, ijaz. So what's implied is that Sayyidina Musa is saying, أتقولون للحق لما جاءكم إنه سحر. Right? Are you saying about the truth when it comes to you that it's magic, right? And then he says, "Asihrun hadha." Um, uh, is this magic, right? So it's a rhetorical question. Clearly, it's not magic, right? وَلَا يُفْلِحُ السَّاحِرُونَ. And whilst at the same time, um, the sahirun, the magicians, don't succeed. What's going on? So Sayyidina Musa is expressing his shock, like, the truth has come to you. There are convincing arguments, there are miracles, things that you cannot replicate, and you're saying it's magic, right? You don't have any idea what magic is, right? Just things beyond your understanding. So therefore, you've relegated everything to magic, right? And he didn't even say it, like the Quran doesn't express it to show how shocked he is, right? He said, "Asihrun hadha." Is this magic? You know, Clearly it's not. The rhetorical question gives the meaning. No, clearly it's not, right? and and then he says, "Wala yuflihu sahirun," and then he mentions a general rule, right? Which in some of the ulama mention, when there's a fi'l mudari, present tense verb, general rules are mentioned, that "Wala yuflihu sahirun," magicians don't succeed. So um, there are two types of magic we've talked about before, right? Two types of magic. Um, I talked about this in the tafsir of Surah Al-Falaq. So generally, there's magic which is just a sleight of hand, card tricks, pick a card, any card, right? And this is technically, it's not real magic. It's just duping people with trickery. So you know it's not the most, it's not something you should engage in, right? um and then there's actual real magic, and magic is used to harm people, right? In the Sharia, it's a kabira, right? One of the major enormities. And if in the process of performing that magic, the magician has to do something which is kufr, then it's kufr, right? It takes a person out of Islam. Allah protects us from that, right? And so why do people do magic, right? It's to harm people. It's to cast a spell on someone, or to split up a marriage, or um, various things that people do, right? And it's done with malicious intent, and so it's a form of zulm, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates zulm. So there's a general rule which is mentioning here, that a magician is never successful. Anyone that resorts to magic to harm someone, it will, they will not be succeed, right? Maybe that person will come to some harm if Allah has decreed it, but in the long term, this person is going to be the one who loses out, right? The one performing the magic. And what you'll find generally in what you'll find is the ulama say that when it comes to recompense, they say al jaza'u min jinsil amal, right? The recompense. So the word jaza can be used for good. So when you say jazakallahu, you add khairan, right? So the jaza can be used for good, and it can be used for otherwise, right? So they said the recompense is from the same category as the deed, right? So for example, if someone is going to if someone manipulates another and robs him of his money, then what happens is his punishment usually comes in a way where the same thing is done to him, right? If someone, wrongs someone in one way, then maybe that whatever they used to wrong them with becomes the means for their downfall, right? So I think there's a statement from Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib, something about the one who digs a hole for his brother to fall in, he falls into it, right? So it's like that. So here you are, right? So he says that magicians do not succeed. So remember that, right? Remember that people, sometimes resort to these sorts of things in order for, we don't want this person to marry that person, or whatever, the petty motivations are. But look at it forever, look at its effect forever. And those people that do this are the losers. They really lose out. Allah will never support this, right? Because He said clearly here that the magicians, those who resort to magic, they never succeed, right? They don't succeed. So what happens next? So then the elite, the mala, they speak, the governors, they speak to Musa. قالوا أجئتنا لتلفتنا عما وجدنا عليه آباءنا وتكون لكما الكبرياء في الأرض. Look at this. They argued, have you come to turn us away from the faith of our forefathers so that the two of you may become supreme in the land? وما نحن لكما بمؤمنين. We will never believe in you. Pharaoh demanded, bring me every skilled magician. Right. So what's happening here? So some of the coming verses will add a bit more context as well. But what's happening? قالوا أجئتنا لتلفتنا عما وجدنا عليه آباءنا. So for these people, inherited religious practice was sacred, right? So as for the Arabs and as for many people, the development of science and other sciences, um, other branches of knowledge, hadn't advanced much. So these people, uh, they, their explanation of the world around them depended greatly upon what they had inherited, the myths and the superstitions that they had inherited. And one of the things here was the deification and the worship of their kings, right? So, they believed they were gods. So now they're saying our whole understanding of the world is from what they've, they're saying that they've, it's come from what their forefathers gave to them, right? What they've inherited, and you're trying to turn us away from that. And it's almost like, someone's on a bridge, across a ravine, and you know and someone else comes and puts explosives on both sides, and is about to press the trigger, and they go, you're coming to blow the bridge up, where are we going to go? We're going to just going to fall. So they're describing it as though, complete destruction will come to them, which obviously it won't, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent them something superior. So anyway, this is what they did. And so they said, what do they do now? Say, uh, وَتَكُونَ لَكُمَ الْكِبْرِيَاءُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. So do you want us to turn away from what our forefathers, what we've inherited from our forefathers, so that you too can have dominance, kibriya, this, the biggest role, um, from kabura, to be big. So this grandness, right, grandeur, right, that you can have that in the land. Is that what you want? So basically, they're accusing Sayyidina Musa and Harun that you're using deen to uh, take control over the dunya. You're using religious authority to take control of our lives, to strip us of our authority, and to assert your dominance over us, right? And which is as far from the truth as possible. Sayyidina Musa goes through a lot of difficulty with these people. Why? He's just delivering the message of his Lord. And clearly, prophets, why were all prophets shepherds, right? Because the whole process of being a shepherd teaches them something of, care and concern for those under them. And, there is a, they must have had care and concern. Prophets, most people, if they were to see someone in pain or someone getting tortured or something like this, they would feel something for them, right? And they would not want it to continue for that person. No, normally people don't like to see other people suffer. So prophets, when they know the reality of the hellfire, and even any intelligent person, eh, let's leave aside all of you know the extreme difficulty and pain and suffering of the people of the hellfire. If you just think about normal fire, right? That black fire is black. If you just think about normal fire, and that someone is going to be put into fire, maybe someone would look at them and say, well, they deserve it, right? Okay. But if you think about the duration, forever, right? And it kind of, or even if it's not forever, even if it's for a long time, it kind of brings to a person's heart some form of sympathy, that okay, they might have done something bad, but you know I wouldn't want this person to be burnt like this, right? If that person insists, then it's his choice, right? But most people wouldn't want others to experience this. And the prophets have this, right? The prophets have this compassion. And to say that their compassion is fake and they're just doing it for money, they're just doing it for power, to assert their dominance, then there's a problem, right? Especially when they haven't asked for it, right? So this is what it is. So he says, um وَمَا نَحْنُ لَكُمَا بِمُؤْمِنِينَ, very strong nominal sentence, powerfully expressed, that we will never, ever, ever believe in you too. Do what you want, basically, right? We won't believe in you. And so at this point, Fir'aun says, قال فرعون ائتوني بكل ساحر عليم. Fir'aun says, bring me every skilled, knowledgeable magician. Right? Why? Because he wants to pit them against Sayyidina Musa and Sayyidina Harun. Bring your miracles, we'll bring the magicians, let's see what happens. Let's look at the next ayah we're looking at. And so he says, Fir'aun said, قال أجئتنا لتخرجنا من أرضنا بسحرك يا موسى. Yeah? And he said, have you come to drive us out of our land with your magic, O Moses? Okay. So فَلَنَأْتِيَنَّكَ بِسِحْرٍ مِثْلِهِ. We will certainly, without a doubt, there's no question about it, very powerfully expressed, bring, produce magic equal to it. Right? So this is what it is. Now, what they're doing, you can only delay the inevitable. You can't stop it. And what's inevitable is that the truth will prevail. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is supporting Sayyidina Musa and Sayyidina Harun. So there's no way, they can get out of this, right? There's no way Fir'aun can, avert the coming of the truth. Delay all you want. So he's saying, fine, he's using magic. We're going to bring even more magic. We're going to bring people that know magic better than you, and we're going to undo your magic, right? Wrong. So what happens next? So he says, فَجْعَلْ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكَ مَوْعِدًا لَا نُخْلِفُهُ نَحْنُ وَلَا أَنْتَ مَكَانًا سُوًى. So he says, so set for us an appointment that neither us nor you, expressed quite clearly in Arabic, will fail to keep in a central place. So he says to Sayyidina Musa, okay, you've got magic here, and he's kind of saying that we don't know magic. We're going to bring our skilled magicians, and you can compete with them. So it's challenging him, right? So we'll bring our magicians, and you compete with them, right? Just because we're not skilled in it, they'll try to pull a fast one over us. That's basically what he's saying. So we'll bring our magicians. You come. And you choose a day. Look what he's doing. He's making out like, I'm so confident that we're on the truth, and Musa, you can't do this and you can't do that. So it's like, so you choose a day, right? Or a day of your choosing. You choose a day where neither we will fail to turn up, neither you. So make sure, you, a day where you're going to turn up, we will turn up. Be sure of that. Makan and suwa, in a place which is neutral, open for everyone, so many people can come. What's he doing? He's setting himself up for a fail, right? He's setting himself up to get embarrassed and humiliated, right? So that's what he's doing. So he said that, let's do it like this. You choose, making out as if, I have nothing to fear, right? Okay, we'll see. And so you choose this place. So what happens? So Sayyidina Musa said, قال موعدكم يوم الزينة وأن يحشر الناس ضحى. So he said that the appointment is the day of the zina, the day of adornment. So it seemed like, we don't know which particular day it was, but it seemed like that they had a festival that wasn't too far off. And so Sayyidina Musa chose that day of festival, that day of dressing up, this festival. People are free, they won't be working, so everyone will turn up and everyone will see the miracle, everyone will see the truth of the message of Sayyidina Musa. It can't be something that the palace, hides away, right? So this is what they do. So he chose, so the location obviously it's not mentioned, but it'll have been somewhere where everyone can see, where anyone can turn up. There'll be an army, there'll be Fir'aun's people, people, but it's a place that everyone has access to in general, right? And he chose the time, right? Which he chose the early morning, duhan, wa an yuhshara nasu duhan, and that people will be gathered in the early morning. So after sunrise up until dhuhr, but here, stating it means generally it's pretty much straight after sunrise. Why? It's bright, because if you said we'll meet at night or we'll meet at maghrib or whatever, it could be dark and people could say, like, oh, we didn't see anything, whatever. No, bright, everyone's alert. Let's have it there, right in front of everyone, right? So there's no. So Sayyidina Musa was not scared. He's not scared of making a public display of this, right? Because he knew Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is with him. Will he feel nervous later? Nervousness or like a slight type of fear? Yes, right. We look at that, right? But it's not. That's a natural, a natural feeling when you're about to go into something, consequential. So anyway, فَتَوَلَّى Fir'aun. So Fir'aun turned away completely. Okay, fine. You go off to your business. You prepare. We'll prepare. فَجَمَعَ كَيْدَهُ. And he prepared his plot, getting all of these magicians over and getting, promising them riches, promising them, power, that they'll be close to Fir'aun, all of these things. ثُمَّ أَتَى. And then he came, to, you know, enforce, to put his plot into action, right? So what happens next, right? So it says, فَجَمَعَ السَّحَرَةُ فَجُمِعَ السَّحَرَةُ لِمِيقَاتِ يَوْمٍ مَعْلُومٍ وقيل للناس هل أنتم مجتمعون لعلنا نتبع السحرة إن كانوا هم الغالبين. So people were told, and there's a lot of propaganda, there's a lot of Musa has come, he's trying to do this, he's trying to do that, he's trying to change our way of life. And so Fir'aun has challenged him to, so all these magicians are coming, and so the air is electrified basically, right? That there's a lot of excitement coming for this. It's really hyped, and so people are looking forward to seeing this. So it's said to people, so the magicians were gathered for this time, this appointed day, and it said to people, meaning Fir'aun's people are going out telling people, "Are you going to gather? Are you going to come? So we can then nattabi'u sahara." It's like a sporting event, isn't it? Right? It's like a sporting event. We'll come and we'll support, we'll follow, but we will support the magicians, right? And hopefully they'll beat uh, it's like when people, they're supporting their favorite football team or whatever, and they're really hopeful, and yeah, they'll beat them, and it doesn't always happen. So and they'll come out on top, right? فلما جاء السحرة قالوا لفرعون أئن لنا لأجرا إن كنا نحن الغالبين. And so he said, they said, are we going to have a big reward? So they're in it for the money as well. But are we going to have this have a good big reward if we win? And what does Fir'aun do? So they're greedy. They've come with greed, and they've come thinking, yeah, it's our time to cash in. He needs us now. Normally, when tyrants, when they want something, they just get people to do something, and then they won't pay them. They won't, give them their due, right? But here now, it's the tyrant who's in need. So they say, are we going to get this reward? Are we going to be rewarded? So what happens? he said, قال نعم, yes, you're gonna have a huge reward. وإنكم إذن لمن المقربين, and indeed you, on that day when that happens, you'll be of those who are brought close, right? You'll be close to me. So he's enticing, manipulating them, but he's enticing them with wealth and political power and influence. And this is what many people desire. Unfortunately, sometimes people have this desire to be known, to be famous, to be recognized, to be, raised in people's sights, for people to look up to them with deference, and the easiest way to that is with money and power, right? And so this is what they do. They do these things for power. So Fir'aun said, yes, you're going to have all of this. So we'll stop here, and what we'll do is we'll look at some of the lessons from here. Just quickly recap, and we'll look at the actual challenge tomorrow and what happens when the snake meets the magic. Right? Let's see. Okay, so what are the lessons? So people often reject Iman to protect worldly interests, like Quraysh, like Huyay ibn Akhtab, like Fir'aun, like his mother. All of these people, they were rejecting Iman. Why? Just to keep their power, keep their positions of power and authority. That's what was the most important thing to them. So, um, you know, they they don't care. They'll sacrifice their akhirah. And so beware of this, and beware of this, right? And if it can happen on the highest degree, for A'udhu Billah, Allah protect us, if it can happen where someone would reject Iman, uh risking going to hell forever, then it can happen for lower things as well. A'udhu Billah, Allah protect us. We need Allah's protection from these plots of shaitan, right? So many tricks are used to dissuade people from the truth, such as Fir'aun, you know, uh, manipulating them that he wants to take you out of your land. Well, he's playing on their fears, right? He's playing on their fears. Sometimes a person doesn't have a concern and they'll use it. I was driving once, there was a billboard, and some bank had put an advert, and he said, "Afraid? Are you afraid you won't have a home to call your own?" Question mark. And it's just, what's the whole point of it? It's to make people who are driving past read it. It just goes in their mind, and then subconsciously they're thinking about it, and they think, oh yeah, I need my own home, and I'll get an interest based mortgage, right? Get into riba. But it's like that. And and so the tricks are also used to discredit people who teach the truth, right? So there's a simple rule, I believe it's by Sayyidina Ali. What is it? uh, was it لا تعرف الحق بالرجال. The truth is not known uh, by the people, who are with the truth, right? So you don't identify something as being true because certain people are behind it, right? ولكن what is it ولكن اعرف الحق تعرف أهله. But recognize what is true, what the truth is, and you'll automatically know who's following it, right? So it's like that. So understand the deen, understand the principles and the values of the deen, and it becomes clear. Okay. Those engaging in magic to harm others will never be successful. And this is very true. As we said before, anyone that does this, it comes back and bites them, right? And Allah doesn't like dhulm, right? Even if you don't see it happen in the dunya, it certainly happens. And anything that any sort of punishment or requital or recompense that happens in the akhirah, oh my God, it's so much worse. It's better to have it in the dunya than to have it in the akhirah, right? If people get embarrassed just in front of 5, 10, 20 people, imagine 10 or 15 billion people stood there. Auzubillah. Allah protect us. And so yeah, so Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he chose an open area. He had nothing to hide. He knew this is the truth. And so someone that has the truth, they'll say it straight and openly. Yes, this is the truth. Here it is. It's based on this. Here's my evidence. Whereas Fir'aun, the way he was doing it to try and dissuade Musa. So another trick and tactic. Musa said, yeah, on this day where everyone's going to be off, right? You could have chosen another day where people are working. No, this day, festival, everyone's off at this time where everyone can attend, men, women, children, elderly, everyone. Here you are. And so also last one, greed is a powerful motivator. Never underestimate, what people will do for money, right? And so if it comes to, in order greed for money or greed for status and uh, you know recognition or whatever it is, right? These things, they can make people move mountains, right? For the wrong reason, unfortunately, right? So never underestimate how powerful it can be. And others, and people will exploit it, right? There are other people out there who will go and they will exploit the greed of others for their own self, like Fir'aun does, right? So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for afiyah and to benefit us from all of these wisdoms that we receive in these surahs and these verses. And inshallah ta'ala, we'll continue tomorrow and see what happens in the big show, inshallah. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. uh, والحمد لله رب العالمين. Okay, that's fine. Right, okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.